My first novel came out in 2004, so I haven't been doing this very long, and I started doing it because I loathed my previous job with such passion that I would rather have bored a hole in my head than stay doing it 1 week longer. It was a very educational job, public PR, spin doctoring, political spin doctoring. But I thought, let's give it a go. I did a business plan, and the rest is history, and here we are 5 years later, and 18, 19, 20 books later. So it's been pretty packed. When I start on a book, I actually come up with the ideas. Aspho Fields at the time, although there was something in the Story Bible, Epic said, well, what do you think it is? And I said, well, let me look at some campaigns, and it has to be something, quite dramatic, and it has to be something pivotal for the war to make the various sacrifices and awards worthwhile. And I'm a sort of keen student of World War II, and there were some amazing World War II commando raids, like the raid on Saint-Nazaire, which, frankly, when I looked at it, when I went through the history books and reminded myself how impossible that real raid was, you couldn't do it in fiction. No editor would believe that human beings could do it. It was that over the top. It was beyond gears. So I sort of racked it back a bit into what was believable fiction, because real life doesn't necessarily make good fiction. Real life doesn't have to make sense, but fiction does, because it's a construct. So I came up with what I thought the Battle of Aspho Fields was, and who the characters were involved in it, and why it was significant. And that's when you see the backstory for Anya with her gung-ho, Patton-esque mother, who is this larger-than-life character that little Anya is trying to live up to. And you find out about the Santiago brothers, and that just tumbled out of the actual battle. For the present day stuff, well, it's actually much easier because with Aspho Fields I knew that I had to bridge game 1 to 2, so I knew I had a start and an end point. So that's much easier for me to fill in. But so in some ways I actually had part of the menu from Epic because I know what the game said, but Epic's always been very good about saying, well, what do you think happened? Add to this. And that's quite nice because I feel that I'm adding to the fabric of the whole story, the whole franchise, and not just sidelined into the books that are the other bits, is that one does shape the other, which is very rewarding for a writer. One of the things about writing a book is that when you've written it, certainly for me, I can't see it for what it is. Too many trees and all that sort of thing. And I have to read it cold, and I've forgotten I've written it. I've often forgotten what's in it as well, but that's another thing. I've actually forgotten I've written it. So when I go back to Aspho Fields, I'm actually struck by things that I like that I didn't even know I liked when I was doing it. It's because it's like, this is a book, and I didn't write it. It's a very odd feeling, What I liked writing at the time, which was exploring the relationships between the characters, when I actually read the book, I tended to find my favourite bits were the flashbacks, because watching them training and watching Dom gradually deciding who he was and becoming this sort of knife-wielding commando I actually liked that, and I'd sort of forgotten where it went, and I was carried along with it. I realised I was still reading. It's really sad when a writer can only read their own stuff and won't read the book. But yeah, I mean, I might as well be honest about it. It's a totally different process for me. So the other thing I really enjoyed about Aspho Fields was exploring the relationship between Hoffman and Marcus, because I didn't think they hated each other. I mean, there's friction, but it's more born of bewilderment, because they both knew each other as honourable men, and they'd both been heroes, and suddenly have this massive falling out. And I know Mike Capps said in an interview it was just one of those things that just happened and nobody thought it through for the game. Actually, it was the biggest gift I could have been given, because it was like, yeah, but I know why he left him to die in the jail, or presumably left him to die, and you could see Hoffman going, why did I do that? Why did I just react like that when all this man has done and all we've been in the past? We're the same regiment. And it actually sets up all those guilt things, because Hoffman is all guilt. So that was a really nice bit. And I'm really, sometimes you get these real breaks from the most odd places, and they come out of nowhere. It's the temptation to overrun the actual continuity. One thing I've learned from other franchises is don't add what you don't need to. Don't add detail you don't need to. If it doesn't drive the actual story at that point, don't commit yourself to times, dates, technology, anything like that. So I've been very sparing. I've also been very sparing about adding what we call OCs, original characters, in the Time world, because in other franchises I've done entire series with casts that are all my original characters for various reasons, but with this I've been very sparing. I want to keep it down to a small number of characters as close to the books. When I've added new characters like Bernie and Padrick, it's been for a real specific reason, because I've needed them as devices in the stories. Like I've needed someone who was around at a certain time but has been separated. I've needed someone who would give some background to the other characters. So they're only there when they absolutely have to be, because there's nothing worse than sort of proliferating. So I'm also trying to reuse characters from the comics to make sure that we're that meshed. I mean, that's the joy about doing Gears, is that it's such a small creative team by comparison with other franchises, and we all talk to each other. And we talk to each other regularly. It's not a matter of just getting a piece of paper saying, well, this happens, to fit it in. It's like, I'm doing this. Does that, how's it going to affect you? What about this? Can I lift this from you? And that's a fantastically stimulating collaborative process. And that is the real joy of it. I mean, people say to me, well, why do you do this? Why do you write books? You don't read books. You don't like reading. You don't play games, and that's not because I don't like games, it's because of the constraint. But why do you do this? Why do you produce something you don't consume? Because of the joy of producing it. It's like, why do people knit baby clothes when they're adults? It's because it's fun and they want to do this and they want to share that with the user. And, I get enormous pleasure out of Gears. My friends tell me they actually know when I'm in one of my Gears schedule phases, because they say, your mood's lifted, Karen, you must be chainsawing, because it's just, you don't know what the next day is going to bring in terms of the sort of ideas you're going to get coming back in, or what'll strike you when you're writing. It's just a lovely, joyous thing to get your coffee, sit down, fire up the PC and go, yeah, Gears, fabulous.